President Bush pushes President Gorbachev to speed up the arms control talks. And the National Organization for Women vows to oppose the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court nomination. This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. President Bush took the day off and went to Camp David, but before he got serious about relaxing, he told reporters he had sent a special message to Soviet leader Gorbachev that it is time to get serious about arms control. Mark Phillips has our report.
Before he went out into the heat of the golf course today, President Bush turned up the heat on Mikhail Gorbachev, sending him a message, telling him that if the Soviet president wants an arms control treaty and a summit this summer, he'd better tell his negotiators to work harder at it.
What I want to do is be sure that he energizes his bureaucracy just as we've energized ours. It's normal diplomacy. Got a lot of other problems to talk about, and he knows that we want to have a summit, but he also knows that we're going to have to conclude these START talks.
Administration sources say the U.S. will not agree to a summit without a new strategic arms treaty, and that despite recent meetings, serious differences remain over the classification of warheads and weapons to be allowed and over the sensitive issue of exchanging missile test results. The stakes are increasing for Gorbachev, who met yesterday with German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. Kohl has been backing Gorbachev in his pitch to Japan and the Western industrialized nations, the so-called G7, scheduled to hold their summit in London later this month. The Soviets will have to deliver a credible reform plan if they are to get the massive Western aid they need. But today's arms control message to Gorbachev may have been something of a lifeline thrown to the Soviet leader by President Bush, something to grab onto if the results of the London G7 meeting are less than he wants.
Because the stakes are so high for Gorbachev and really for the G7, it is possible that what they're trying to do is to package that with a U.S.-Soviet summit sometime towards the end of the month or before the August holidays.
The U.S. is banking on the fact that Mikhail Gorbachev feels he must come back from the London summit with something. The Soviet leader is now under double pressure to commit himself to a believable reform plan and to give some ground in arms control. And he's running out of time to deliver in both those areas. Mark Phillips, CBS News, the White House.
If anything, the turmoil in Yugoslavia appears closer than ever tonight to all-out war, but war in which the yearning for self-determination in the Yugoslav republics could well be bowled over by fierce ethnic hatred. Martha Teisner has been there all through the trouble, and she has the latest.
Negotiations over control of Slovenia's 27 border posts broke down today, with noon tomorrow still the deadline to give them up, and Slovenia still refusing. Meanwhile, in Ljubljana, Slovenia's capital today, even militiamen were enjoying the uneasy ceasefire, but Slovenians are willing to fight over the border question.
The border is the symbol of the independence, and we must they must leave the border ours.
But tonight there are signals that Slovenia may actually be allowed to secede. The president of Serbia, the hardline communist who has done most to stop the breakup of Yugoslavia, said the country would be better off without its two separatist republics. But he also hinted that for 600,000 Serbs living in Croatia, the civil war may be just beginning. While Slovenia has gotten more attention, Croatia's declaration of independence has brought a flare-up of ethnic hatred that could ultimately make the conflict here much bloodier.
They come the police with the transporter and start shooting on everybody. Shooting, only shooting, no question, no warning, no nothing, just shooting.
10 days after a shootout between Croatian police and Serbs, the town of Glina is deserted. The eerie calm is enforced by Yugoslav tanks at every corner. That army is dominated by Serbs who have a vested interest in protecting their own people. If the army leaves, it will be terrible, she says. Only the women and the brave ones dare to stay here. Glina's hospital has over 100 employees. All but 20 have fled. The fighting was precipitated by Croatia's declaration of independence, but it has a long history. 50 years ago in Glina, Croats rounded up 1,500 Serbs and massacred them. If Croatia does become independent, Serbs here say they will fight to remain part of Yugoslavia. Written on the wall, the word Krajina. It means the territory on the edge. It describes conditions in Croatia. Ethnic clashes have now become so frequent in Croatia that Croatian radio tonight actually predicted that one would take place. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Zagreb.
A UN inspection team arrived in Baghdad today to determine whether Iraq is concealing evidence of a secret nuclear weapons program. Iraq claims that all its weapons have been destroyed, but the first question the inspectors want answered is whether or not Saddam Hussein will let them check that out by allowing them to go wherever they choose. The Palestine Liberation Army's last major base for attacks on Israel, the refugee camps in southern Lebanon, were all but dismantled today as PLO guerrillas began handing over their heavy weapons to Lebanese troops. The surrender came after heavy fighting that began earlier this week, and we have a report on that from Alan Pizzi.
It took 4 days and a couple of hundred dead and wounded, most of them innocent civilians, for the Lebanese army to claim a little more of Lebanon for the government. The shattered Palestinian refugee camps were the last power base for PLO guerrillas close to Israel. And in theory, Lebanese army control will mark an end to attacks on Israel from South Lebanon. Today, the Lebanese government formally asked Washington to press for the withdrawal of Israeli-backed militia in South Lebanon. The Lebanese and their Syrian backers maintain that Israel now has no excuse for keeping troops or its surrogate militia in the so-called security zone. But the Israelis aren't buying it just yet.
For us to feel secure, we have to look at Lebanon as a country that should not be engaged in any conflict with Israel, as it was until the beginning of the civil war in Lebanon.
Even if there is no more PLO activity, Israeli officials say, the 40,000-strong Lebanese army still can't or won't control the Iranian-backed Hezbollah militia. For that, they blame the Syrians.
Because the Lebanese government is a surrogate Syrian government. It is a puppet government. There is no real Lebanese independence.
This week, an Israeli soldier was killed by 3 gunmen who came from Lebanon across Syrian territory. It was the first attack on Israeli troops along the Syrian border since 1975. Israel didn't fault Syria, but the incident served to stiffen Israeli resolve not to give in to pressure to pull back from Lebanon now that the PLO threat is theoretically gone. The wire fence that marks the border with Lebanon still isn't enough to make for good neighbors, the Israelis believe. So farmers along the edge of the frontier will continue to have the company of Israeli armor plowing the borderline. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
And still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, why the United States has had to rethink its policy toward Yugoslavia, and California lifeguards try to save themselves from the on-the-job hazards of the beach.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered the 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
Good game, good friends. And now that I use Fix-It-In, I can tell the ref what I really think.
Fix-It-In and forget it.
Are you nuts? Before I switched to Fix-It-In, Jones Peanut Crunchies only looked delicious.
Fix-It-In and forget it. Fix-It-In is the strongest holding denture adhesive you can get. It even stands up to the hottest liquids.
With my old adhesive, I'd never make a presentation and drink hot coffee at the same time.
For the strongest hold you can get, Fix-It-In and forget it.
If you're looking to maintain regularity, look here. There's a drug-free way to do it, and Kellogg's All Bran can be an important part. Because a high-fiber diet, including Kellogg's All Bran, can give you the fiber you need to help stay regular, drug-free. And All Bran goes a lot better with berries. A high-fiber diet and Kellogg's All Bran for drug-free regularity.
The National Organization for Women is drawing up its battle plan. It has decided to oppose the nomination of Judge Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court. It is a fight that some say might give the organization new life at a critical point in its history. Bob Fall has our report.
For a few moments, the 70s lived again. 4,000 people, including Bella Abzug, snaking down New York's 6th Avenue. Blowing whistles against Bush administration policies, waving banners, Gag sperm, not choice, read one.
A lot of the things that we got as women, and struggled for in the 60s and 70s, now being taken away, and we have to fight back to what we had already earned for ourselves.
Hear our voice! All these people are pro-choice!
Reflecting that sentiment, now's leadership vowed to do whatever it takes to defeat Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas.
I'm embarrassed as a black person that they even found this little creep. Where did he come from?
The question, of course, is whether an organization which turned out massive crowds years ago, but which can't boast too many legislative victories lately, matters anymore. A lot of tough-minded political pros argue, no, it does not.
I don't think now is a mainstream political force at this point. I think a lot of the women involved in it have the potential to be a mainstream force, but I think the organization has just gotten to look a little bit irrelevant.
Still, few candidates in 1991 are willing to write off this group's potential.
I think there's more power now that is latent in the women's movement, because now we're at a point in our history where women's freedoms are so threatened that they are getting galvanized.
So now an organization which needs a new role has a new issue, and what happens in the nomination of Judge Thomas will have a great deal to say about how much or little political power the National Organization of Women really wields. Bob Fell, CBS News, New York.
Civil rights leaders meeting in Houston are trying to decide whether to support or oppose Judge Thomas's nomination to the court. The NAACP says its board of directors will discuss the nomination at a special session next week. New Orleans, it turns out, will be the site of the National Education Association's 1994 convention. The nation's largest teachers union voted to meet there over the objections of some of its members who oppose Louisiana's restrictive new abortion law.
It's how steak is done.
Our dentist gave us a reason to switch toothpaste.
Baking soda. He recommended it for healthier teeth and gums.
In fact, 2 out of 3 dentists and hygienists recommend baking soda for healthier teeth and gums.
And only one major toothpaste has it. Arm & Hammer Dental Care, the baking soda toothpaste from the baking soda experts.
And here's refreshing news for gel lovers. Now there's a baking soda gel with the cool taste of freshly picked mint. Wait till you taste new Arm & Hammer Dental Care Gel.
If your doctor has recommended Metamucil and you like the results, but you don't like those glasses of thick liquid, change to FiberCon. Get the same fiber action in easy-to-swallow tablets. Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
Think about your daydreams and what you would do if you won $1 million out of the blue. Miracles can happen for you. Publishers Clearinghouse, the house where dreams come true.
I'm Charles Kuralt. Our neighborhood libraries are caught in a financial squeeze that could close the book on many of them. The story this Sunday morning.
The crisis in Yugoslavia found expression in this country today. Some 300 Serbian Americans demonstrated in Los Angeles to show their concern for their families and friends in Yugoslavia. They urged the United States to apply pressure on the Yugoslav government to avoid violence. As this week began, U.S. policy seemed to favor the status quo in Yugoslavia, but that did not seem to be the policy by midweek. And that is tonight's Washington Notebook. Is the administration for or against the possible breakup of Yugoslavia? Seldom has a U.S. official received the kind of greeting Secretary of State Baker got from Albanians desperate for political freedom. But in nearby Yugoslavia, it was a different mood and a different story when an anxious local reporter asked Baker about freedom for Slovenia.
And would the United States, under any circumstances, be prepared to grant it diplomatic recognition?
No, we would not.
Less than a week after Baker said that, the central government sent the tanks across Slovenia's border. Was that in part because the Yugoslav army thought Baker was telling them the United States would side with the established government in Yugoslavia no matter what? If so, many on this side of the Atlantic believe the Yugoslav army got it wrong, that Baker was simply being cautious, that he was desperately concerned upheavals in Yugoslavia could spill over the borders.
Inevitably, you're going to be reactive if you get into a series of military confrontations. The government clearly needs to worry about precedents in other places.
And they felt that any encouragement given to the republics in Yugoslavia would simply mean that next week the Lithuania, Ukraine, Georgia would also be knocking at our door.
So Baker urged unity, dialogue, but he returned from Yugoslavia a troubled man.
It is truly a powder keg situation, and one that is deteriorating even as we meet here this evening.
Even as Baker spoke, the tanks were trading artillery fire with Slovenian defense forces. By week's end, events were moving so quickly, Washington couldn't keep pace.
I'm stopping the clock while we're sitting here in freezing time. Things could be going on at this moment while I'm speaking.
Not until the violence increased did U.S. policy shift. The call for unity began to fade, replaced by harsh condemnations of the brutal Army crackdown. And by Tuesday, the State Department was finally giving its flat-out endorsement to that old American concept, self-determination.
We support whatever the Yugoslavian people decide the Yugoslavian people want for themselves.
Having said that, the United States finds itself without a blueprint for what comes next. Maybe that is understandable. American democracy is dependent on bringing diverse people together. The path toward self-determination in Yugoslavia may well rest on the country splitting apart. By week's end, James Baker seemed to concede there is little America can do about it.
It's only the Yugoslav people that are going to determine their own future.
In the beginning, of course, that is always a hard thing for outsiders to understand, whether it is in Vietnam or Afghanistan or a dozen other places where people have risen up over the years against governments. But perhaps it's a good thing to remember on this 4th of July.
Now you can ask Angela Lansbury about Bufferin.
Angela, you've said on TV that Bufferin is effective pain relief. Is it really strong aspirin?
I'll say it is. Extra strength Bufferin's the strongest dose of aspirin you can buy. 1,000 milligrams.
Angela, how can Bufferin be so strong if it has buffers?
That's a good question. I've learned the buffers don't weaken it. They just help prevent aspirin's stomach upset. Bufferin's great pain relief.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of Bufferin?
We've just found a way to make Nabisco spoon-sized shredded wheat even better. Every shredded wheat biscuit is now toastier and crispier because each is toasted through and through. It's almost like we let each little biscuit have its very own great day in the sun. Wake up to Nabisco shredded wheat. It tastes like it's sun-toasted.
Red Lobster announces great new trios. Delicious trios you're gonna love, like our Atlantic Trio for just $6.99.
Terrific.
Or large butterfly shrimp, lobster Alfredo, and scallops.
Love it.
Or crab legs, juicy scallops, and shrimp.
Let's go.
Hurry, for a short time our great new trios start as low as $6.99.
$6.99? That's incredible.
Red Lobster for the seafood loving.
Just one day after electing Nelson Mandela its new president, the African National Congress today reaffirmed its boycott of constitutional talks with the South African government. The ANC is demanding the release of all remaining political prisoners before any talks begin. In the African country of Malawi, a desperate situation is in the making tonight. Too many refugees from a war next door, not enough food to go around. Peter Van Zandt with that.
Out of the bush, refugees fleeing civil war in Mozambique wander into neighboring Malawi. They are victims of a senseless war where both sides see these people as potential enemies. My mother was taken by the government, this refugee says. They killed her and chopped her up. These refugees are joining nearly 1 million of their countrymen who have sought sanctuary in tiny Malawi, overwhelming this impoverished nation. This camp along the border has become Malawi's third largest city. There are hundreds of thousands of new mouths to feed, in a country that doesn't have enough food for its own people.
People should be concerned about this problem simply because it is a human issue. If people aren't assisted, they will die.
Relief agencies from around the world are responding to the need, providing food and medical care. But donated grain from the West acts as a magnet for Mozambicans, who keep coming by the thousands.
Tremendous congestion in terms of health facilities, availability of water, educational facilities, not to mention food.
The camps in Malawi are among the best organized in all of Africa. The villages are relatively clean. Food, including flour, peas, and sugar, is rationed, and there is limited health care. About 1/3 of the Mozambican children are receiving an education taught in their native language. Life for these refugees is so much better than back in Mozambique that there is concern these people may refuse to go home. We shall never return to Mozambique, this refugee says. We want to live here.
Ending the civil war in Mozambique is the only way to solve this refugee problem. The Malawi government wants the U.S. to pressure both sides to settle the dispute because they know none of these people will return home until there is peace. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, on the Malawi-Mozambique border.
Here at home, there's been a drive lately in some education circles to put new emphasis on America's ethnic diversity. Bruce Morton has some thoughts on that in tonight's commentary.
Multicultural education is one of the decade's new ideas. It means that the schools should teach something of the art, the science, the culture, the values of all the different groups which make up present-day America. Kids would learn not just American and Western European history, but something about Japan, China, the Incas, the Ashanti Empire, and so on. Good idea. Lots of schools probably had too much white bread on the curriculum. Learning about other cultures can stretch young minds. At its most extreme, though, this drive for diversity turns on itself and becomes a drive for conformity. Schools should teach, some inner-city educators argue, an Afro-centered curriculum and de-emphasize the role of DWEMs, dead white European men. Maybe not. It's worth remembering this Independence Day weekend that not only are we all different, reflecting different cultures, but that important things unite us, too. This federation has lasted at the cost of one bloody civil war more than 2 centuries now. It's lasted because of what unites it. Not one language, one culture, as in, say, France, but the belief in one set of ideas outlined in the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, ideas inspired by the work of dead white European men. We haven't always lived up to these ideas, of course. Freedom and equality were proclaimed by men who owned slaves. But we have believed in them enough to stay together as one federated country, arguing, sometimes fiercely, usually peaceably, within our laws. That isn't easy. If you think it is, just look at all the other federations, the Soviet Union, Canada, India, Yugoslavia, which nowadays seem in danger of coming apart. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
A House subcommittee is charging tonight that the Environmental Protection Agency has bungled the job of tracking down waste and abuse in the Superfund cleanup program. An EPA spokesman says the agency is going to respond once it gets a complete copy of the subcommittee report.
Hey, Larry, that you? Long time no see.
Fellas, please, I'm expecting someone.
So?
What, she thinks I'm a man of substance?
Yeah, what are we, 3 noisy guys?
Well, no,
hey,
but I...
Kellogg's Rice Krispies is serious stuff.
You?
Yeah, we're tops in complex carbohydrates. And it's fat-free.
Fat-free?
That ought to impress her.
Well, you don't know this lady.
Well, soon.
Oh, no.
Ooh, interesting choice. Intelligent and fun-loving.
Snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's Kids Day free time at Quality, Comfort, Clarion, and Sleep Hotels.
Huh?
Kids 18 and under stay free at Choice Hotels when you call 1-800-4CHOICE and reserve a room.
I'd like to share a great letter and a great improvement in Depend. Listen, dear June.
When my grandson won his baseball championship, I was so proud. And I couldn't have been there without Depend.
Now Depend introduces a unique system of double-layered protection. Absorb Lock Plus. The top layer absorbs, the quilted layer locks liquid in.
June, thanks for one great day at the ballpark.
Isn't that terrific? Get back into life.
Hi. What'd you bring back?
Diarrhea.
Of course. You forgot your kaopectate.
Advanced Formula Kaopectate. Just one dose helps relieve diarrhea fast.
Next time, I won't forget the kaopectate.
Guaranteed to stop diarrhea fast.
Germany's Steffi Graf won the women's singles championship at Wimbledon again today. She defeated Argentina's Gabriela Sabatini 6-4, 3-6, 8-6. It was her third Wimbledon victory in 4 years. The match lasted 2 hours and 7 minutes. It was the second longest women's final in Wimbledon history. Southern California's beaches are an inviting combination of sun, sand, and surf, of course. But it turns out those who make their living on the beach are trying to take cover these days from some very real dangers. Ron Allen now with our final report.
California's lifeguards seem to have it all. A year-round job on sunny beaches, enjoying lazy afternoons. But they say that's just the problem. The sun's ultraviolet rays can cause skin cancer, and they often have to swim in waters off Los Angeles that are frequently polluted with dangerous chemicals.
Doesn't matter if a storm drain has leaked out some kind of a toxic chemical, and it doesn't matter that the sun has fried 3 layers of skin off of our body. Our job is to be there.
Currently, lifeguards have to prove any cancer they contract resulted from their work. So they're asking the legislature to give them the same protection as county firefighters. Any cancer firefighters contract is presumed to be job-related.
The facts are that lifeguards, especially in Los Angeles County, are regularly exposed to toxic chemicals in the water as part of their emergency response actions.
I'm going to be on this job for another 30 years, and if I do develop any skin cancer, I think it should be presumed it's job-related.
Lifeguards cite the case of Patricia Brower as a reason for so-called presumptive cancer benefits. Despite months of expensive treatment, she recently died of skin cancer. Brower was a lifeguard for 13 years.
It didn't help it. It's 13 more years of sun exposure that she didn't need.
But insurance companies and some employers don't want to be forced to disprove that cancer was caused by exposure on the job, since lifeguards spend so much time outdoors even when they're not at work.
Lifeguards are physical people. They're on the beach on their days off. They're skiing, they're playing golf, they're swimming, surfing, fishing, doing everything.
And they argue broadening the cancer benefit laws to include lifeguards would encourage other outdoor workers to demand the same. Taxpayers would end up footing the bill.
It could be a very expensive benefit.
Most lifeguards who contract cancer already have little problem qualifying for medical payments. But lifeguards want even more protection written into the law because they still feel extremely vulnerable to the dangers of the sun and surf. Ron Allen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's the news. Tomorrow on Face the Nation, the controversy over whether Ronald Reagan's campaign team tried to delay the release of the American hostages in 1980. We'll talk about it with former Attorney General Edwin Meese. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News, New York.
The people of CBS News. Dan Rather.
Connie Chung.
Bob Schieffer.
Leslie Stahl.
Ed Bradley.
And Charles Kuralt. Experience.
CBS News.
This is CBS.